What if the Jefferson nickel you've ignored for years is actually a hidden fortune? Most people think nickels are worthless, but 3 rare Jefferson nickel coins, because of wartime silver content, rare dates, and powerful minting errors, are now worth thousands or even hundreds of thousands of dollars. Collectors are desperately hunting these coins, and one tiny detail can turn a 5-cent coin into a life-changing treasure. Before you spend or throw away another Jefferson nickel, watch closely, because you might already own one of the most valuable Jefferson nickels ever made.
Imagine holding a small piece of American history right in your hand, a simple 5-cent coin that traveled through decades of change, war progress, and innovation. The 1970 Jefferson nickel might look ordinary, but beneath its silver-gray surface lies a story of transformation from the depths of America's post-war economy to the heart of numismatic fascination. This coin witnessed the dawn of the modern minting era, a shift in metal composition, and the closing chapters of one of the most respected designs in United States coinage history. Welcome to the world of the 1970 Jefferson nickel, a story that's far more valuable than 5 cents. The story of the 1970 Jefferson nickel begins in an era of social change, political reform, and economic adjustment. America in the late 1960s was a nation recovering from the turbulence of civil rights struggles and the space race while preparing for a new decade filled with innovation and transformation. The Jefferson nickel had already been in production for over 3 decades by the time 1970 arrived, first introduced in 1938 as a tribute to the 3rd President of the United States, Thomas Jefferson, and his iconic Monticello estate, designed by Felix Schlag. The coin's imagery reflected both a sense of national pride and neoclassical beauty, representing Jefferson on the obverse and his beloved Monticello on the reverse. By 1970, the Jefferson nickel had undergone minor design modifications, but its symbolism remained powerful. The coin still bore the familiar bust of Jefferson facing, left his portrait dignified and calm. The words, "In God we trust and liberty," framed his image, alongside the year 1970. The reverse carried the majestic view of Monticello Jefferson's home in Virginia, with the Latin motto E pluribus unum above the dome and the inscriptions Monticello 5 cents and United States of America below. But behind this familiar look, a silent revolution was occurring at the United States Mint. The 1970 production year marked an important phase in the evolution of coinage technology, quality control, and mint distribution practices. The mint facilities at Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco were all actively producing Jefferson nickels that year. Yet each facility's output carried subtle differences that collectors today carefully study. The Philadelphia Mint produced no mint mark on its 1970 Jefferson nickels, as was tradition before 1980, while the Denver Mint proudly stamped its coins with a small d below the right side of Monticello. The San Francisco Mint, however, was a different story, altogether producing proof versions of the coin with the distinctive S mint mark, meant exclusively for collectors. The 1970 Jefferson nickel had no significant change in composition. It retained the same copper-nickel alloy that had been in place since 1946, consisting of 75% copper and 25% nickel. This composition was chosen for durability, appearance, and practicality. The wartime silver nickels of 1942 to 1945 were long gone, replaced by this tougher alloy that could handle the wear of modern circulation. But what makes the 1970 issue fascinating to coin historians and numismatists is not its metal but its context. The late 1960s and early 1970s marked a time when coin collecting reached one of its highest peaks in American history. Millions of people were searching their change daily, hunting for rare mint marks, double dies, and errors. The United States Mint responded by improving die preparation and experimenting with new proofing techniques, especially in San Francisco, where proof coins were struck with high-polished dies and extra care. This made the 1970s proof Jefferson nickel a highlight among proof collectors. With its deep cameo contrasts and mirror-like fields, one of the defining characteristics of the 1970 Jefferson nickel lies in its subtle variations, including small differences in die states and minor minting errors that became collectible treasures. Over the years, coin experts have documented repunched mint marks known as RPMs, especially from the Denver Mint, where the D mark was occasionally struck more than once during the minting process. There are also instances of die clashes where the obverse and reverse dies struck each other without a planche between them, leaving ghostly impressions of Jefferson's face, or Monticello faintly visible on the opposite side. These natural mint errors turned otherwise common coins into fascinating study pieces for error specialists. In total, the 1970 production was substantial, with over 515 million Jefferson nickels minted in Denver and more than 370 million in Philadelphia. Meanwhile, the San Francisco Mint struck just over 2 million proof coins for collectors. These figures remind us how widespread the Jefferson nickel was in everyday life. It wasn't just a collectible, it was a working piece of American commerce moving through gas stations, diners, supermarkets, and school vending machines across all 50 states. Yet the historical significance of the 1970 Jefferson nickel goes deeper than circulation. It represents the calm before a major design reevaluation that the United States Mint would undertake in the following decade. As minting technology improved and the bicentennial celebration of 1976 approached, the Mint began considering updates to the Jefferson nickel's design, though these plans didn't come to fruition. Until decades later, the 1970 issue stood as one of the final coins of its era to reflect Schlag's original vision, nearly unchanged. When we explore the proof versions of this coin, we step into the world of mint artistry. Each 1970s proof nickel tells a story of precision craftsmanship. Proof coins were not intended for circulation. They were struck multiple times on specially prepared planches, resulting in sharp details and a mirrored finish. These coins were sold directly to collectors through the United States Mint's annual proof sets. The 1970s proof set also included the Lincoln cent, Roosevelt dime, Washington quarter, and Kennedy half dollar, together forming one of the most admired proof sets of its decade collectors today. Search for the finest examples of these coins graded by professional services such as PCGS and NGCA. Jefferson nickel, 1970, S-proof. With a perfect deep cameo finish, can command impressive prices, especially in PR69 or PR70 condition. While circulation, strikes from Philadelphia and Denver are abundant, their highest mint state examples, especially those free from contact marks and with full steps on Monticello, are highly prized. The full steps designation refers to the clarity of the steps at the base of Monticello. A detail that reflects the precision of the strike coins with this rare feature demonstrate extraordinary minting quality and can be worth far more than their face value. The Jefferson nickel of 1970 also reflects broader themes of American culture and economy. The 5-cent coin had long symbolized everyday affordability. From buying a soda in the 1950s to paying for a bus fare in the 1970s, this coin connected the lives of millions of Americans. Its design served as a daily reminder of Thomas Jefferson's vision of democracy, education, and independence, a silent tribute to the ideals upon which the nation was built. As we move through the decades, the 1970 Jefferson nickel continues to find its place in both historical study and hobbyist circles. The coin's endurance through time speaks to the strength of its design and the importance of its message. For over 80 years, the Jefferson nickel has survived numerous proposals for redesign's composition, changes, and inflationary pressures. Yet the 1970 edition holds a special charm. It is both vintage and modern, a link between the silver-dominated coinage of the early 20th century and the more industrial metal coinage of the modern age. Whether found shining in an uncirculated roll tucked in a collector's album or resting in the corner of a child's piggy bank, the 1970 Jefferson nickel carries with it the spirit of its time. It reminds us that even the smallest coin can tell a grand story of American innovation, art, and history. This 5-cent piece is a window into the craftsmanship of the mint, the evolution of technology, and the shared experience of a nation where coins aren't just currency, but symbols of identity. Have you ever held a coin in your hand and felt the weight of history pressed into its surface, a simple nickel that silently tells stories of America's struggle, its innovation, and its promise? The 1968 Jefferson nickel is not just a small piece of metal. It is a witness to a transformative decade in American history, a time of social change, space exploration, and numismatic evolution. This coin carries the marks of craftsmanship, politics, and precision that reflect the heart of the nation. As it entered a new era, welcome to the story of the 1968 Jefferson nickel, a story of transition, innovation, and subtle rarity that continues to fascinate collectors and historians around the world. The 1968 Jefferson nickel emerged in a defining moment for American coinage following the great coinage changes of the 1960s, when silver was removed from most circulating coins, and the U.S. Mint faced a massive demand for coins amid population growth and industrial expansion. The Jefferson nickel had already been a staple in American pockets since 1938, when it replaced the Buffalo nickel. Its design, created by sculptor Felix Schlag, honored the third president of the United States, Thomas Jefferson, whose Monticello home stood as a symbol of intellect, democracy, and architecture. By 1968, the Jefferson nickel had seen its fair share of adjustments. But that year marked one of the most significant transitions in minting history, because it was the year when mint marks returned to United States coinage after a 3-year absence in 1965. The U.S. Mint had removed mint marks from coins in an effort to discourage the hoarding and collecting that was causing a national coin shortage. By 1968, the Mint decided to restore those marks, but in a new location for the Jefferson nickel, the mint mark moved from the right side of Monticello on the reverse to the obverse, just to the right of Jefferson's portrait. This single change gives the 1968 nickel a unique place in the timeline of American coin design. It was not just a technical adjustment, but a reflection of renewed public trust in the coinage system and the Mint's confidence that coins would again flow freely into circulation. The 1968 Jefferson nickels were struck at 3 facilities: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, with the San Francisco Mint producing proof coins. Only each mint had its own story of production challenges and innovations. The Philadelphia Mint struck the largest quantity without any mint mark, following the long tradition of its plain coins, while the Denver Mint, identified by its small D mark, produced circulation strikes that would fill the pockets of millions across the country. The San Francisco Mint, however, focused exclusively on proof coins intended for collectors. Each proof coin was a mirror-like masterpiece, carefully struck with polished dies and specially prepared planchets, creating a level of detail and brilliance unmatched by regular circulation issues. The metal composition of the 1968 Jefferson nickel remained the classic 5-cent alloy of 75% copper and 25% nickel, giving the coin its familiar silvery hue and durability. The coin weighed exactly 5 grams with a diameter of 21.21 millimeters and a plain edge. These technical details may sound simple, but they reflect decades of refinement. The perfect balance between economy, durability, and aesthetics, designed to keep American coinage both functional and beautiful. Examining the design, we see the artistry of Felix Schlag still alive after 3 decades, Jefferson's portrait facing left with calm dignity, his eyes gazing toward the word liberty and the national motto, "In God we trust." The lines of his coat, the soft curls of his hair, and the subtle contour of his face were crafted with remarkable realism on the reverse. Monticello stands as the architectural centerpiece, the word Monticello beneath it, with United States of America and E pluribus unum, completing the patriotic vision. By 1968, minor design changes had smoothed out some details over years of hub design transfers, yet the coin still retained its timeless character. The year 1968 also marked technological advancement at the U.S. Mint as coinage production shifted toward more automated methods and improved die-making processes. The Philadelphia Mint installed new high-speed presses that could strike nickels at incredible rates, ensuring a consistent supply while maintaining quality. This efficiency was essential as America's demand for coinage soared with its rapidly expanding economy and consumer culture. For collectors, the 1968 Jefferson nickel presents a variety of intriguing details. The circulation strikes from Denver are generally common, but can show notable variations in strike sharpness due to heavy die use. High-grade examples with full steps on Monticello. The lines visible on the building steps are especially prized by numismatists. The full steps designation is one of the highest indicators of strike quality and precision. A 1968 D nickel with fully defined steps can be rare and command premium values at auction. The Philadelphia coins, though plentiful, are less sharp in detail due to older dies used in production. Still, they represent an important part of the year's output. The San Francisco proof coins, however, are where the artistry shines most. The proof nickels of 1968 are renowned for their mirror, Field's frosted devices, and stunning eye appeal. They were struck twice under carefully controlled pressure, ensuring crisp detail. Each proof set sold directly to collectors became a treasured keepsake, reflecting the mint's dedication to excellence beyond the minting process. The 1968 nickel holds deeper historical significance. The late 1960s were a time of profound change for the United States. The Vietnam War was ongoing. The civil rights movement continued to shape society, and the nation had just witnessed the assassinations of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Senator Robert F. Kennedy. Amidst this turmoil, the everyday nickel represented stability and continuity, an unchanged symbol in a rapidly changing world. When Americans reached into their pockets, they still found Jefferson's calm face a quiet reminder of the nation's enduring ideals. Numismatically, the 1968 nickel bridges the gap between early wartime silver alloy nickels of the 1940s and the modern-clad coinage era that would dominate the following decades. Collectors view it as a transitional issue, a symbol of the mint's modernization and America's persistence through turbulence over the years. Grading services like PCGs and NGC have authenticated and encapsulated thousands of these coins, with high-grade examples achieving MS66 or MS67 designations, sometimes fetching surprising values among registry-set collectors. The proof coins, especially in cameo or deep cameo finish, continue to draw admiration for their beauty. As the years have passed, the 1968 Jefferson nickel remains a mainstay of American numismatics. It may not be the rarest or most valuable coin in the series, but its story is one of subtle transformation. It marks the rebirth of mint, marks the rise of proof coin artistry, and the balance between tradition and progress. Every detail on this coin tells a chapter of America's numismatic journey, from design evolution to metallurgical consistency, from production efficiency to cultural endurance. Imagine the journey of one 1968 nickel from the Denver Mint, rolling off the press, bright and new, into bags shipped to banks and businesses, changing hands in grocery stores, gas stations, and diners, each transaction adding tiny marks that tell of everyday American life. Decades later, it may rest in a collector's album, protected and admired, not for its face value, but for the heritage it carries in its metal. And so when we speak of the 1968 Jefferson nickel, we are not merely talking about a 5-cent piece. We are telling the story of American craftsmanship, of a nation's resilience, and of a design that has stood the test of time since 1938. Felix Schlag's vision of Jefferson and Monticello has endured with minor refinements but unwavering purpose. The 1968 issue embodies that continuity, linking the past and the future through a simple yet powerful symbol. Have you ever held a coin that carried more than just its face value, a coin that whispered stories from the heart of American history? Today, we uncover the untold legacy of the 1958 Jefferson nickel, a coin that looks ordinary to the untrained but hides a powerful story of transition, craftsmanship, and American pride. From the minting halls of Philadelphia and Denver to the hands of millions of Americans, this coin marks the final calm before one of the biggest design and production changes in U.S. coinage history. Stay tuned as we dive deep into the craftsmanship, the minting secrets, the errors, and the market value shifts that make the 1958 Jefferson nickel one of the most underrated yet significant coins in U.S. history. The story of the 1958 Jefferson nickel begins in the post-war era of American optimism, when the United States was growing stronger, economically, culturally, and politically. The Jefferson nickel itself had been in circulation since 1938, replacing the Buffalo nickel and featuring one of the nation's founding fathers, Thomas Jefferson, on the obverse, and his Monticello estate on the reverse, designed by Felix Schlag. This coin became not only a piece of currency, but also a reflection of American heritage and artistry. By 1958, the Jefferson nickel had been in production for 2 decades, and the U.S. Mint had mastered the art of striking this coin with consistency, precision, and beauty. The Philadelphia Mint and the Denver Mint were the only 2 facilities to produce the 1958 Jefferson nickel. There were no nickels minted in San Francisco. During this year, this meant that collectors and historians would later focus their attention on mint marks and subtle details that distinguish one coin from another. The Philadelphia issue had no mint mark, while the Denver issue bore a small D located to the right of Monticello on the reverse side. Both versions were struck from the standard composition of 75% copper and 25%. Nickel, giving it the familiar silvery tone that endures through decades. 1958 was a year of technological transition within the US Mint. Advances in die production and metal preparation began improving strike quality, although the coins were still made using traditional mechanical presses. Compared to later years, these presses required manual oversight by skilled mint workers who ensured the dies remained aligned and the pressure consistent. The Jefferson nickel's design, especially the steps of Monticello, was notoriously difficult to strike fully. Many coins from 1958 failed to show complete step detail, which would later become one of the most sought-after features for collectors, known as full steps or FS designations. These refer to the sharply defined horizontal lines at the base of Monticello when all 5 or 6 steps are visible without breaks. The coin is considered a numismatic gem. In 1958, the Philadelphia Mint produced around 168 million nickels, while the Denver Mint struck nearly 120 million in total. The mintage surpassed 280 million coins, making it one of the higher production years for the Jefferson series. Despite that, the survival of high-quality coins, especially those with sharp details and minimal contact marks, is relatively low due to heavy circulation. Most of the nickels minted that year were used daily in commerce, passing through countless hands buying coffee, newspapers, gasoline, and groceries. It was the era before widespread credit cards when coins truly powered the American economy. As we explore the design, the obverse of the 1958 Jefferson nickel presents a left-facing portrait of Thomas Jefferson rendered with classic neoclassical styling. His expression is calm and thoughtful. A tribute to his intellect and leadership. Around the edge of the coin reads the words, "In God we trust," on the left, and "Liberty," followed by the date. 1958 on the right, connected by a small 5-pointed star. The reverse side features Monticello Jefferson's famous estate in Charlottesville, Virginia. The building is framed by the word Monticello at the top, 5 cents below, and United States of America along the lower rim. A pluribus unum is centered above the dome, signifying the unity of the states. By 1958, the dies used for minting were showing slight wear from years of repeated use. Minor changes and refinements occurred in the engraving to maintain clarity, yet the mint refrained from any major redesign until the 1960s. This makes 1958 an important transitional year. It represents the last pure stage of the early Jefferson nickel design before subtle modernizations began appearing. Collectors today view the 1958 Jefferson nickel as an affordable yet historically rich coin. Its value in circulated grades is modest, but in mint state conditions, particularly in MS-65 to MS-67, with full steps, the prices can reach hundreds of dollars, and in rare top condition even over $1,000, especially from the Denver Mint, which is known for slightly weaker strikes. The most prized 1958 D nickels are those showing sharp steps and clean luster preserved from uncirculated rolls or original mint sets. There are also known varieties and errors that fascinate coin enthusiasts. Some examples include double die obverse and reverse issues, where letters or features appear slightly doubled due to misalignment in die preparation. Other varieties include repunched mint marks or die cracks along Monticello's columns, though not as dramatic as wartime silver nickel errors. These 1958 mistakes still attract attention and can significantly boost a coin's desirability and market value. The year 1958 also connects deeply with the broader American story. Dwight D. Eisenhower was president. The nation stood at the dawn of the space age, and the spirit of progress was everywhere. The Jefferson nickel was part of the fabric of everyday life, yet it was also a silent witness to social change. The civil rights movement was gaining strength, and the U.S. economy was thriving. The coin symbolized stability in an era of rapid transformation. Its metallic shine reflected both tradition and hope. When studying the Jefferson nickel series, numismatists often divide its history into major phases. The early silver wartime nickels from 1942 to 1945, the pre-modern years from 1938 to 1964, and the modern-clad issues beginning in 1965, the 1958 nickel falls squarely in the pre-modern era, making it one of the last pure copper nickel issues before the mint overhauled many of its processes. It was a period when design integrity and die craftsmanship still depended heavily on human expertise. Every coin struck was a small piece of artistry born from the efforts of engravers, die sinkers, and press operators who dedicated their careers to perfection. Over time, collectors have come to appreciate the 1958 Jefferson nickel not just for its face value or metal content, but for what it represents: the end of an age of traditional minting and the perseverance of a classic American design. The Jefferson portrait continued to appear on the nickel for decades, but by the 1960s and 1970s, design fatigue and modernization efforts began altering its details. The 1958 issue remains one of the last untouched examples of Felix Schlag's original artistic vision, before refinements began reshaping the portrait and Monticello's relief. As the years passed, millions of these coins were lost to wear, melting, or circulation attrition, yet thousands survived in collectors' hands. Today they are preserved in albums and coin slabs carefully graded by professionals from the Professional Coin Grading Service and the Numismatic Guarantee Company. Their surfaces tell stories of history and preservation, shining reminders of mid-century America. To truly understand the 1958 Jefferson nickel is to see beyond metal and mint marks. It is to understand the evolution of American craftsmanship and the quiet dignity of a design that has endured for nearly a century. This coin remains a symbol of progress, continuity, and the enduring value of American coinage. Whether you are a casual collector, a numismatist, or simply someone fascinated by history, the 1958 Jefferson nickel holds a story worth telling, a story of legacy, precision, and the timeless beauty of American minting.